What pain are you dealing with? What does that look like? And speaking truth into that, saying that's not who you are. That's not true of you. This is what's true of you. And speaking that truth, it's having that place of being able to be real. And sometimes it's ugly and it's messy. I can remember her saying to my mom, you know, she would be such a cute little boy. I was like, yeah. So that totally affirmed, you know, all those things that, yeah, it would be better to be a boy. People are recognizing that I'm already cute as a boy, so I might as well be that. And being a woman isn't really a great option. That was when I told them I wanted to be a man. And my dad pretty much told me, we will not talk about this again. You are not going to do that. And I said to my mom, Mom, you know what? I really do want to be a boy. And my mom said, that's gross. I went to a doctor and he's like, yeah, I can start you on hormones. So I moved out of the house and I began the hormones and I thought I was free. I was like, yeah, I'm finally here. I have arrived. I am free. This is my life. I saw myself as a heterosexual male, and to date women as a male was normal. I never viewed myself really as a woman. One of the pastors that we'd become friends. Well, he said, you know, we're hearing some rumors about you. And I just want to know, who are you? Who are you really? Prior to that, I'd said, I'm a man who used to be a woman. This time I said, I'm a woman living as a man. That's the truth. And when I did that, the Holy Spirit went and just blew into me. And I was like, ooh. And, you know, I didn't know much about the prophetic or anything, but I had this quick vision and I saw 2 weeks of my life and everything I needed to do. And I needed to step down from this ministry. And first and foremost, though, I had to go back to being who God created me to be. And I was like, ugh. To me, there was no other option. I had no other choice. Some of the major wounds that I dealt with was, of course, my dad. That was a big deal. And at one point, the Lord came to me and he said, when you pray, I want you to call me Daddy. I had started in this program at the Portland Fellowship, and I was working through my stuff. When I came out of the lifestyle, I got involved with them. And one of the teachings on is, you know, what do you call the Lord? And what name can't you call him? And I thought, well, I can call him Father, I can call him Dad, I can call him, I'm like, I don't have an issue with that. And then when the Lord came to me and said, when you pray, I want you to call me Daddy, because that's what I called my dad, was Daddy. And I thought, okay, that's the trigger there, that one. And when he said, I want you to call me Daddy, I said, not doing that, not ever. And so he backed off. And the next day I went to pray and said, oh, Lord. And he's like, I want you to call me Daddy. And I'm like, then we're done. I'm not doing that. This went on for 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm standing my ground because he's not going to make me call him Daddy. And I realized later that in calling him Daddy was like swearing at him, because that had such a bad taste in my mouth. It meant so many ugly things to me. Why would I want to call the Lord Daddy? Why would he want that? So there's a graveyard that I would go and pray at, mostly because it was quiet. Nobody bugged me. And I could pace around and pray out loud. And I can remember sitting on the curb and I started to pray and the Lord said, I want you to call me Daddy. And I thought, okay, it's been 2 weeks. He's still asking. Obviously, I haven't changed his mind. So what would be wrong with that? What if that's okay? What if? So I sat there and honestly, I had to work up courage, because I'm like, okay, wait, if I do this, what is he going to do to me? How is he going to respond to me? Because this other person who I called Daddy wasn't good. The Lord's supposed to be good, but now I'm calling him a name. So I had this turmoil in there and dealing with fear. It's like, if I say this, I don't know, but what if it's okay? What if it's okay? So I sat there with all the courage I had, and I just said, Daddy. And I broke. And I cried so hard, my sides hurt the next day. I mean, it was this deep within me, gut-wrenching pain, whatever that was that came out. And I remember pounding my fists into that grass as hard as I could, yelling, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, with everything that I had. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I just called the Lord Daddy, and now I'm yelling, I hate you. I'm like, Lord, I don't hate you. I don't hate you. I don't hate you. And the Lord said, I know, but you had to for a moment. It's like, oh, because I understood that he stood in that place. And the only way I know to describe it is that he took that pain, and all I know is something happened that day. You know, there was something within me that was released. There was something within me that was gone, but yet it was still raw in there. The next thing the Lord had me do was work on forgiving my dad. And I can remember I was actually going through these deliverance sessions, and we came to this place of forgiving people. The leader said, well, what about your dad? I was like, oh, man. And I said, yeah. So being kind of rebellious, I go, what about my dad? And she said, well, don't you think you need to forgive him? I'm like, I'm not forgiving him. She goes, well, she pushed a little bit, said, don't you think that's something you should work on? I said, no, I am not forgiving him, ever. And she's like, okay, I know you don't want to do this, but it's kind of like, this isn't really an option for you to go forward. We're called to forgive. And she goes, I know you don't like him. I know that he wasn't very nice. However, can you just be obedient? I was like, oh, obedience. Yeah, there's that obedience thing again. And I'm like, yeah, I can be obedient to that. She's like, I'm not saying you have to feel anything. You don't necessarily gonna have to like him afterwards. You don't have to worry about that stuff. It doesn't, just because you forgive him doesn't let him off the hook. He's still on the hook with the Lord. It just means that you're transferring the responsibility that you think you have to make things right to the Lord. And you're going to allow the Lord to make things right. I'm like, huh, so I don't have to like him then? She's like, no, forgiveness is not about liking somebody again. I'm like, all right, I can do this then. So she worked me through the forgiveness, and I forgave him for all these things. And, the Holy Spirit was so faithful in bringing up things. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. So I shared all these things and forgave him. And then she's like, okay, so now let's bless him. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that ever. So again, we were done. She goes, honestly, I know you don't like him and you probably don't want to hear this, but God loves your dad too. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great point. So I worked through the blessing, and it actually came to a point where I meant it. I'm like, yeah, Lord, I do want you to bless him because he doesn't know you. And in that, working through that forgiveness and that blessing him, the Lord did show me, he said, your dad did love you. He loved you the only way he knew how. It wasn't what you needed, but it was all that he had. And I realized that my dad wasn't loved as a kid. So you can't love when you don't know how to, or you're bankrupt. How do you give from a place that you don't have? And that just gave me compassion for my dad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how miserable was your childhood? wondering if you were ever loved, if you know, did you know what that was like to be comforted? Did you know what that was like to be affirmed? Did you? And I just brought all these questions, and then my heart broke for him. I was like, okay, this went from hating you to now going, oh, I feel bad for you. I was like, okay, Lord, how'd you do that? You know, it's like, I said ever, I wouldn't do this ever. And here I've done both those things that I said I would never do. That was probably about another 2 years. My dad's birthday was coming up. And the Lord said, I want you to send him a card. I'm like, what? He's like, I want you to send him a birthday card. I'm like, really? I got to send him a, really? He's like, yeah. And I want you to put your phone number in there, giving him an option, you know, maybe to contact you. I'm like, oh. I said, you know what? I'm not even going to think about how that makes me feel. I'm just going to be obedient. Because if I let my emotions go, it'd probably take another 5 years before I send this card. So I went to the store. Of course, you know, you look at all these dad cards and they're just gushy and I'm like, nah, I don't even feel that way. So I found this card that was to a dad, but it was very generic. It was like, I hope you have a happy birthday and a really great day. And I thought, I can say that, you know, I can do that. So I wrote in there, you know, this is true. I really do hope you have a great birthday. And, you know, here's my phone number if you ever want to call and have coffee sometime. Quickly stuck it in the envelope, got it in the mail. So I wouldn't go back and, you know, pull it back. It was probably the day that he got the card and he opened it, he called me. So it was kind of like 2 days later. Hey, got your phone number here and thank you for the card and let's have coffee. I was like, shoot. Oh man, Lord, you set me up. So gathered my brothers and we went over there, and one of the things that we did as a family, we played pool. Well, by this time my mom had left my dad. She had finally was able to, had enough. You know, my dad was hurting. And so for us to all be over there was a great blessing for him. And we're playing pool and he's being his jerky self. Just, you know, I was like, really? So I said to the Lord, I'm like, Lord, this really makes me mad. I come over here, done all this work, and he hasn't changed. He hasn't changed a bit. And you're wanting me to reconcile with this God? He hasn't changed. And the Lord said, I'm not asking him to change. I'm asking you. I'm like, man, Lord, this is so lopsided. But then I realized he was right, because my dad didn't know any different. He didn't know the Lord. He didn't have what I had. And my dad never dealt with his pain, you know, pain of losing his dad when he was young. And so again, the Lord rose up all this compassion, and I slowly began to hang out with my dad again. Only this time as an adult, and understanding I get to draw boundaries with you. I can tell you, no, that's not okay. And it's not okay, not because I don't love you. It's just not okay because you can't treat me like that. And so it really got good between me and my dad. And I wouldn't say it was the best, because there came a point where I realized, you know what, he got abusive with me over the phone. And I realized, okay, and I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, he's abusive now, and this is painful, because now in my place of being healed, I was able to deal with the pain right then, rather than stuffing it, now dealing with it. I was dealing with the pain right then. And the Lord had attached a lot of my emotions, because I was so detached from anything. Anytime I felt something, I'm like, Lord, what's that? What is this that I feel? And he'd see me like, that's pain. And I can remember one time I felt really good. And I said, Lord, what is this? And he's like, that's joy. Because in feeling so good, I'm like, usually when I feel good like this, it was not a good thing. And so I wanted to be sure it really was a good thing. So I asked him, what is this? And he goes, that's joy. And I'm like, this is what joy feels like? I like joy. This is good. Can I stay here for a while? He's like, yeah. So he was, you know, explaining to me as I felt something, he would tell me what that was. And so in dealing with my dad in this phone call, I hung up the phone. And, you know, still figuring out emotions and how that works. It took me a couple of days, and I'm like, man, what is this that I feel, Lord? I don't like the way I feel. Something feels kind of raw in there, and I don't know the word. I don't know what it is. The Lord said, that's pain. Your dad hurt you. I was like, oh, that, shoot. And I saw in his abuse that he's really not safe. You know, even though we reconciled and we had a few good moments, he still wasn't a safe man to be around. Yes, I had changed and I could see good things about him. However, he was still the same. And so he would still treat me the same. And the more boundaries I tried to draw in a healthy way made him more angry and the more abusive he got. My dad never got it. And sadly, he passed away 5 or 6 years ago, and he passed away alone. So one of the things that I learned in coming out is that how exhausting this life, living as, you know, someone who's in deception really is. When I was confronted by the church, I went home that night and I slept for 2 days because this huge burden was lifted off of me. And I realized, you know, in keeping that 4 steps forward and 2 steps back, trying to cover everything was exhausting. And the deception, you know, I didn't realize how deep it was. I thought it was just me trying to be who I thought I was supposed to be, and I needed to get out of that. And as I moved forward into who God created me to be, I saw all those lies that I had embraced as truth. I thought they were truth because they were affirmed. Well, they were affirmed because I already had that lie in there. And trading that for the truth, it was hard. But there's a place of faith that I believed God, and I took everything to the Lord. Somebody would say, you need to be doing this. And I'd be like, Lord, what do you say? Because I don't know. I mean, I had no frame of reference. What does this mean to be a woman? I know that you've created me this way. I know you say this is who I am, but what does that mean? And the Lord surrounded me with people who mentored me. They were all very straight women. They were all married, very nurturing, very caring. They were willing to sit with me. So it's important to have people surround you that will sit with you, that's not afraid of your messiness. And they can see what's going on around right here, but they understand that this stuff right here is not who you are. It's beyond that. It's who are you in that pain? What pain are you dealing with? What does that look like? And speaking truth into that, saying that's not who you are. That's not true of you. This is what's true of you. And speaking that truth, it's having that place of being able to be real. And sometimes it's ugly and it's messy, but those things have to be expressed. They have to be expressed. Because that's what got you into the deception in the first place. That's what got me there in the first place, was hanging on to all these lies, keeping my secret, keeping it all right here, not dealing with anything. And if it hurt, you went over here. I don't have time for you if it hurt, because this is my journey. But then coming around, the only way out of this is to go back through those things, to look at, because I saw the Lord saying, okay, let's look at this. And he didn't say, here you go, look at that. Tell me what you think. What do you get out of it? The Lord's like, hey, let's look at this together. I was preparing for a teaching and I said to the Lord, because I realized I don't have an attraction for women anymore. That's just gone. I can admire their beauty. They're beautiful women. That's it. I don't want to be a man. Even in the hardest situations, I don't go, oh, I wish I was a man right now. And I was asking the Lord, how did that happen? How did you change my thinking? How did you bring this about that I would ever want to be a woman again? And he simply said to me, I never saw you that way. So that brought a tremendous amount of healing, because I understood that through all of this stuff, birth forward, even to that moment, the Lord only ever saw me how he created me to be, his beautiful daughter. And you're thinking of being born in the wrong body. I thought the very same things too. But as I've walked the journey outward, I don't believe there are exceptions, because there's something in there that has rooted a lie in you that is saying that this is not right. That you were born in the wrong body, you're wired totally wrong, there's something wrong with your hormones, there's something wrong with you. And I would say, that's a lie, because there's nothing wrong with you. Something came in there, either an event, maybe it was a flippant remark, but it stuck with you for whatever reason. You came into agreement with that lie. And you said, yes, I believe that that's true. And from there, that little tiny seed began to take root and began to grow this tree and these branches. And then it began to produce fruit. And from that, this little tiny seed, it's usually roots of rejection, abandonment, abuse, whether that's emotional, physical, sexual. There's something in there, something traumatic that happened. Now, I've heard people say, but my parents loved me. We were raised in a great Christian home. Okay, but from 0 to 5, there's that, the formative years. And there was something in there that happened that was either traumatic, maybe you were abused and you don't remember. Not that I'm saying, bring up all this memory stuff, but maybe there is something that you don't remember. But there's something in there that told you that lie, that came into an agreement with something within you, whether it be rejection. Most of the time, it's the root of rejection. I dealt with deep self-hatred. For some reason, I hated myself. Was that just because I was a woman? I think it was also because I didn't think I was good. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I didn't have any value. So there's something in there where that lie attaches to, and you believe it and you come into agreement with it. And then from there, you begin to bear this fruit. You begin to manifest, I'm going to live as a guy. I'm supposed to be this way. I've done some research and I've looked at the medical side of it, and they can't prove there's any hormone imbalances that's, will make somebody go that way because there's too many hormones of one. Now, there are women that have higher hormones, testosterone, than they do, so they have more body hair. However, some of those women that I've known that have had more testosterone, more body hair, are very feminine. To me, all of that argument with the whole hormone thing has always been inconclusive. So if there was a seed of truth in that, that should have been able to have been proven that that was true. I would say if you're really struggling, it's pressing into the Lord and asking Him for the truth. What is the truth? How do you see me? Lord, who can I talk to? Who is it that I can talk to? And He will be faithful to that. He will bring people that can, people who have gone before me. I've read testimonies and I went, wow, if you can do that for them, you can do this for me. And the other part is being willing to look at that. Because honestly, it's a whole lot of pain. There's stuff that I don't know if I'd walk through it again, but yet I would walk through it again because of the freedom that I now have. Yeah, there's a lot of crappy stuff you're going to have to look at. There's a lot of crappy stuff that's going to bring up even more stuff that you're going to have to look at. But the only way out is to go back through it and have the truth revealed and what really happened in those situations. Because once we embrace that lie, we now have this filtering system and everything is filtered through that lie. So even the truth can be all distorted when it comes through and you're like, that's not the truth, because this here is what I have right now. That's the truth. So that can't be the truth. So even when it comes in, we reject it because of the seed that we have in our heart already of the lie. And because of the filtering system that we have, that we now view everything through this lens. And it needs to be cleaned out. And doing that is having people come with you, giving you the truth. And I think it's important to have, they say it takes a village. It takes a village. I had a village of people. However, they each brought an important component to me, when I needed it, of this truth, because they're not in my place. They don't know what I'm going through. Therefore, they can speak the truth. There's places that we can't see that the people on the outside can. And if you're willing to be open with them and willing to, even if you don't agree with them, just willing to think about it and ask that question. What if that's true? There are going to be well-meaning people out there that really want to help you in your healing process. They really think they're doing you a really great thing. However, it's up to you to ask the Lord, who are these safe people? Who are the people that are safe? Because there will be those that, for me, they brought me makeup and lotions and things that would help me be feminine. It's not about being feminine. It's about being holy. It's about finding freedom in Christ and looking to Him to define that. Even though in the process, it took probably about 6 years before I could actually dress feminine, because in my heart, I didn't know that that was okay to embrace that. So the outside reflects the inner healing that has gone on, because you can't embrace what you're rejecting. The Lord's going to walk you through this. If you're obedient to those convictions that He brings, though you look at it and you go, this is a big mountain. Lord, I don't think I can climb it. He's not asking you to climb it in a day. He's just asking you to take one step. And as you take that one step, He's faithful to take that step with you. And it's knowing that He's not going to call you out to take you back to Egypt. He's just not like that. I haven't found Him to be like that ever. I've only walked forward with Him. Is there still things that He's revealing about my femininity? Yeah, He is. I'm not done by any means, but I am free. There's things that no longer hold me bound that I didn't think I would ever be free from, but I am.